Now we're official. Now we're official. Okay. So I'm on D2L right now and I'm in student view. So my screen looks like your screen. All right. And in order to access your assignment, it's really the same way. It's really the same way that ooh, it's really the same way that you've been looking at your reading questions. Just go into assignments and if you click the folder where your assignment is, actually, like if you're looking at it from this perspective, just in the assignment section in general, if you click this file, one submission, one file, or this is however many you submitted, that's going to take you right to your original assignment. That's the one with no feedback, right? So that's just like, so when you do your revisions for your next essay, or excuse me, for draft number 2, make sure you revise. That's the first thing. Make sure you revise on your own original draft. Don't make your revisions to the one that I returned to you with my feedback on there. All right. So when you're working on draft number 2, you're going to get your clean copy of draft number 1 out, and that's the one that you want to make your revisions to. Again, not the one. Don't resubmit the one with my commentary on there. All right. But in order to see the comments, you just want to go to the feedback category and click. Mine says unread because I haven't read my feedback yet that I gave myself, if that makes any sense. Click on that. And so this is my plagiarized paper because I submitted somebody else's paper. So that's why my percentage is at 100%. 100% in this sense is not good. All right. But like, ignore this because I just, just submitted a random file from my computer. But this is your original, right? And if you look up here, this one it's usually going to say your first name or maybe even your last name and then ICE for instructor chosen essay. That's going to be the one with my feedback on it. So that's the one that I want you to look at as a reference. But again, when you get to making your own, when you start doing your own revisions, make sure you do it on your original draft. And the reason being is just hard to, like, if I have, because I'm going to make more comments on draft number 2, and then I don't want to be like stacking the comments on top of each other. All right. So yeah, folks, your papers. Okay, your papers turned out well, man. All right. And just like as a collective, the one bit of advice before we go over these revision strategies, but the one bit of advice that I'll give everybody, or mostly everybody, is to, finish, right? Because draft number 2, it's not the final draft, but it is the one where we're moving in that direction. And for your final draft, hopefully, right, you got, for draft number 2, that's when you start fine tuning it a little bit. You're still working on organization. You're still working on getting your ideas out, but now we're just starting to refine it, just a little bit more. And the goal is for draft number 2, for you not to have much work to do between draft number 2 and the final draft. So draft number 2 is really when you want to put your, put your work in, because now it's like you've already laid your foundation, with your first draft. All right. So now that you've laid that foundation, for most of us, it's just about building on that foundation. All right. And then there's just a couple more quick points I want to hit on before I get to our, I'm gonna run through some stuff in our textbook as well. All right. Make sure you're formatting your essay properly. All right. And for a lot of us, or for some of us, that just means like double spacing. Okay, double spacing your essay. Most of you did it, but if you didn't, like if I put a note on your paper, like be sure to double space or be mindful of MLA formatting guidelines, just make sure you're paying special attention to that in your next draft. And really our goal with that is, we want to get to a point where just setting your paper up properly, that just becomes an automatic response. Like when you have to do an assignment, right? just make sure you're in, you know, you're doing your paper in proper MLA format, right? Okay. And then I'm creating the assignment folder for your second draft right now. Second draft is due, what's today? Wednesday, Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday? I don't know. All right. Week from today. All right. I'm just setting up the folder right now. So that'll be the 16th. All right, plenty of time. And really my goal for this assignment is for us, like, it would be great if we could wrap this thing up before we went on break. And you guys go on break, I think, on the 28th, I believe. Yeah, the week of the 28th. All right, so turn the draft in next. Yeah, we have time to finish it before we go on break. So that's great. All right. Okay. Another thing, I've created the assignment folder for draft number 2. So don't put it in the draft number 1 folder. Put it in the draft number 2 folder when you're done. And then there is an additional piece that I want you to submit with your draft number 2. All right. And it's this document that I'm opening right now. Okay. And it's a self-assessment. I have given you feedback on your paper. Okay. I want you to read the feedback. I want you to review the feedback. I want you to act on the feedback that you deem necessary. All right. But I also want you to take ownership of that revision process. And what I mean by taking ownership is I need you to go beyond, right, what I have, you know, drawn attention to. Like, what I put on your paper are just my observations or my suggestions, you know, on ways to improve your paper. But really, you know, it's your name and it's going in your folder at the end of the semester. So I do want you to take ownership and go back over your own paper. All right. See what changes you want to make to your paper. Right. You know, see where you think it could be improved, because again, I've given you my suggestions and I do want you to take them into consideration, but I also want you, you know, to go through this process of self-assessment. And really, it kind of goes back to our syllabus where, or our outcomes for this course, where, you know, one of them was to have you like recognizing your own patterns in your writing. So that includes like knowing what you're doing well, but also knowing what you need to work on. All right. So I have this thing you can fill out here, right? You can just type in here and it's just like list at least 3 changes you made from draft number 1 to draft number 2. Don't just say, you know, I made a few capitalizations that I need, right? I'm talking about like real change. You could say, you know, I added more detail. You know, when I talked about that time I was in 9th grade math class and I was really struggling. That's fine. All right. So at least 3 changes that you made. How long did you spend working on draft number 2? You know, be honest, right? If it's, you know, if you took it lightly, you know, and didn't spend that much time, put that and just say, like, I understand now I need to spend more time, you know, on my next draft. You know, maybe you spent too long, like overthinking it, you know, put that as well. And then maybe the time you spent, you know, was fitting, you know, was appropriate for you. So, you know, whatever that is, you know, just be honest with it. Because this is all about, again, just understanding, you know, your own process. All right. What aspect of writing this essay did you struggle with the most? And then what steps will you take to improve your next draft? All right. You know, sometimes that's paying more attention to detail. Sometimes that's seeing a tutor. Okay. And then finally, right, these are just some yes, no questions that you can go through. And these are more like just checklists, you know, type things. You know, have you used your opening sentences to evoke the reader's interest? And then there's like the mechanics of it, right? Have you properly formatted your essay and all that good stuff? So when you submit draft number 2, make sure you submit this along with it. And this is if you just click on the draft number 2 assignment folder on your end, you'll be able to view the self-assessment. All right. What week is this, man? February.
And draft 2 is due Sunday night?
Nope, a week from today. So that'll be Wednesday. Wednesday before the start of class.
Okay.
All right. Zoom user. Is it who's a Zoom user?
I thought I had my name changed. I did it the first time.
Oh, is it Ethan? Is that
Yeah.
you? Okay, I'll change it for you. As soon as I can get this stuff up.
I got it.
Okay.
How
Cool.
do you change it permanently? Because I've done this before.
Oh man, now that I don't know. You may have to have a Zoom account in order to do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right. I'm special, man. I'm a teacher, so I got a free one. All right. So let's crack open these books, man. All right. I'm already signed in because I was messing around with our book today. Okay. Now, all right. Actually, no, I don't want to start with the book today. I want to start with some good old fashioned slides. All right. I'm in the week 5 module. All right. And I just want us to look at these slides really quickly, and then I'll cover some stuff from the book, and then we'll call it a night. So I think the first thing that we should understand is the difference between revision and editing. All right. So right now we're still in the revision stages of this assignment, and revision, it's still all about addressing the big ideas, so to speak. All right. The big ideas, meaning like content, you're still adding material to your essay. All right. Now, some of the ones that were single spaced, that were like 3 pages of single space type, when you double space that's going to be around maybe 4 pages. All right. So maybe your task is, removing content. Only if you deem some content that there's some content that you don't need. All right. So when it comes to content, you're thinking about adding detail. All right. You're thinking about continuing your narrative. You're thinking about how you can, many of you, you talked about the adverse experience that you went through, right? But for your next draft, the way that you can get to 3 pages, or the way that you can get yourself beyond 3 pages is, okay, you went through this ordeal. You went through whatever you went through, right? So now talk about how you're applying the lesson that you learned. Okay, why do I look like a ghost? Okay, there we go. All right, that's bright in my face though. All right, so think about, and I put this on a few drafts as well. Now that you discuss what you went through, think about discussing how you're applying that lesson, right? So, if you learned, to be careful about how you choose your friends, right? How are you living that today? All right. If you learn to take school more seriously, how are you living that today? If you learn to appreciate your loved ones while you still can, how are you living that today? Right. So if you need, some additional content to help you get beyond, where you are now, think about discussing in more detail, right? How you're applying what you learned, because that's part of this essay as well, right? You went through this thing, but you went through this thing that changed you or taught you this valuable lesson. So now, right, how are you living? Right? Talk about the good, because many of us have already talked about the bad. Also, another way we can get some added length to our essay, try not to gloss over these important events in your life. What I mean is, some of you all, you put these important, this important stuff in your essay, but you only gave it like a line or 2. Okay. Think about how you can use your words to paint that picture for your audience. Or better yet, think about how you can use your words to recreate that experience for your audience. Whatever you went through. Okay. Try to bring your audience there. All right. And you do that by using descriptive language. One of the great things about the book we're reading, Born a Crime, is Trevor Noah is pretty good at, describing things in a vivid sense. All right. So, try to the best of your ability, especially if in some of the comments or some of the feedback on your paper, I put, more detail here. Think about discussing this in more detail. Or sometimes on the end, I put, perhaps you could discuss, such and such. All right. Organization, I think we all, for the most part, did a good job with that. I would just say there were a couple that maybe bounced around a little bit. So just think chronologically in your paper. Like don't bounce around between different areas, different stages in your life. Okay. So don't be 8, in one paragraph, and then in college in the next paragraph, and then you're back to struggling in high school, in another paragraph. All narratives usually flow chronologically. There's always exceptions, but for the most part, they just flow chronologically. Expression of ideas. Okay. On a few papers, I suggested that one of the revision strategies you could use is to read your papers out loud. Okay. Sometimes when we read things back to ourselves from a screen, we'll say what we meant to say, right? Instead of, what's on the actual paper. But reading out loud, it'll just help us catch those errors. And then it'll help us like identify parts of our essay where our wording isn't as clear as it could be, right? And that could be, maybe the word choice could be more specific, or maybe like there's like syntax issues. And syntax is just like the order of your words. All right. And then some things just don't sound right. Right? Some things just don't sound right. So reading your work out loud can go a long way in helping you catch clarity of ideas or just clarity in general. Okay. So if I put, on your paper, be clearer here or be more clear here. Okay, be clearer here, be clear here. All right. Think about clarifying what you mean. Okay. Sometimes it's just like a simple matter of identifying, the person you're talking about. Or sometimes, like I was saying, it could just be a matter of adding more detail. All right. And then responding to the assignment, I think everybody nailed this one. All right. We aren't even worried about this just yet. Although on some of the papers, like I've already started talking about, like I didn't want to address this too early because we're still developing our content. But on some of the papers, I've started to point out like issues with like sentence level issues. Okay. Got a sentence here. Right? Got a sentence here. Oh, let me just backtrack a little bit. On your papers, okay. I haven't started like highlighting that much yet, but I have been using the comments, and I also put things in blue type. If you see something in blue type on your paper, it's just my suggested wording of how it could flow a bit smoother. All right, you'll probably see more of that when you submit draft number 2, because I was trying to just trying not to go crazy just yet with the feedback and commentary. All right. But if you see some blue type, right, again, like I was saying, it's just my suggested, suggestions for wording. But let's look at this sentence. My mother is my role model. She worked 2 jobs when I was growing up. She also made time for me and my brother. Okay. What's an issue with this sentence? My mother is my role model. She worked 2 jobs when I was growing up. She also made time for me and my brother.
I think it's 2 independent clauses.
Oh yeah, yes. Okay, we actually have 3 independent clauses, right? And an independent clause. Okay. Okay, we'll get to you now. All right. An independent clause is a group of words that can stand by itself and make sense as a sentence, or a complete sentence. And what is a complete sentence? It contains a subject and a verb. But I think the most important thing about a complete sentence is it expresses a complete thought. Okay. So now, right, if we jam these complete sentences together with no punctuation, what does that give us? It's a kind of sentence.
A run-on sentence.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a run-on sentence because we have 3 independent clauses, or we have 3 sentences that can stand by themselves and make sense. So now let's fix this thing. How do we fix it? Like what punctuation?
Comma.
Right? What punctuation should we include?
You can use a comma.
Where should we put a comma?
Between model and she.
Okay. Where can we put another one?
Up and she.
On
Couldn't you also use a semicolon?
Okay, now we're really talking. Because if we put commas there, all right, if we just use commas, that gives us a comma splice. And a comma splice is when you put 2 complete sentences together with a comma. Okay, so we can't use a comma here. All right, we can't just put commas there, because again, when we try to separate independent clauses with commas, or when we try to separate complete sentences with commas, that gives us comma splice, and we want to avoid comma splice. All right, who says semicolon? No, was that you, Thomas?
That was me.
Does Ethan? Okay, Ethan. Semicolons. Oops. Semicolons will work. Okay, I don't mean to get that apostrophe in there. Semicolons will work, right? So technically, this is right. Okay, technically this is right, but sometimes, one, you don't want to abuse the semicolon, like you don't want to overuse it, and then, like I was saying, technically this sentence is right, but it can sound just a little bit like clunky, for lack of a better word. So
You could also like a
say,
dash if one of the sentences is emphasized, I'm pretty sure.
say a dash.
Yeah.
Okay, but we can just break this down. All right, so instead of a semicolon or a dash, right, just use our friendly period. Okay, and make like one giant sentence into a couple sentences. Now we're still moving in the right direction. This is still technically correct, because I have an independent clause here. My mother is my role model. Okay. Here's my subject, and then here's my predicate. Predicate's like the phrase containing the verb. All right. So this makes sense by itself, right? Like if we didn't have any of this other stuff. My mother is my role model, right? That's a complete sentence. She worked 2 jobs when I was growing up. We can have a period right here too, if we want it, right? This is technically correct, but again, sometimes you want to go for style points. Okay. We want to go for style points. And I just said we can't use a comma there, right? But we can use a comma if we add something before she. Okay. And I give you a hint. I don't even know, like I haven't seen many of you guys' faces, so I don't know how old you are, but this type of word, it used to be like if you grew up watching like the old school Saturday morning cartoons, right? This is a song that played between cartoons. Okay. Nobody? I'm the only old person here. Conjunction, junction. What's your function? Nobody? Nobody remembers that?
Oh, School of Rock.
There we go. There we go. All right. So
I
we can
remember it a
use,
little bit.
say, okay, very good. And then there's the other one. I'm just a bill on Capitol Hill. Yeah. Okay. So right now, this is a comma splice, but these are our friends. These coordinating conjunctions. Oops. All right. And if you look at this, it's like it spells fanboys. All right. That's an easy way to remember coordinating conjunctions. So we can say she worked 2 jobs when I was growing up, and she also made time for me and my brother. So coordinating conjunctions, right, can help you fix comma splice. So if I have, now I don't, for draft number 2, I still do want you to be working on like developing your content. But if I put a note on your paper, like start paying attention to sentence level issues, that's, you know, I want you to start like at least trying to identify run-ons and comma splice. All right. And remember, folks, a run-on is a sentence that contains 2 complete sentences slapped together with no punctuation. All right. And a comma splice is 2 or more complete sentences slapped together with commas. Okay. So even though sentence structure is more of an editing issue, if there were like quite a few run-ons in your paper, you know, start focusing on that. And then before I forget, all right, you don't have to do it now, but when you sign in to Inquisitive, or when you sign into your textbook, you all are going to see 2 assignments in Inquisitive. This little thing right here, when you log in, there will be like that gold number 2. All right. And I have assigned, thought I did. Oh yeah, I have assigned 3 exercises. Okay, all about sentences. And really, don't worry about how you score for this, because it's more or less practice, right? So I have one on, actually, I don't want you to do the one on fragments yet. So I'm going to deactivate that one. All right. I got to go behind the scenes and deactivate it. So really, I want you to start looking at comma splices and fused sentences, these 2 exercises. And again, when you sign in, you'll just see these. Really, it says 3 now, but it's only 2, because we don't need to do fragments. That wasn't that significant of an issue with these drafts. All right. So comma splices and fused sentences, right? Just all you have to do when you sign in is click on the exercise, right? And then you'll have different options, right? I think yours will just say like start or something like that. Just hit start, and then it's pretty much like self-explanatory from there. All right, it's just like a dragon. Like right here, this is a comma splice. Okay, while we're in here. Okay, I know I'm getting like way off topic because I said I didn't want to go too far into this today, but okay, we have a comma splice here. In 2014, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled bans on same-sex marriage unconstitutional. This decision forced the states to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples who apply, right? So this is a comma splice. Why? Because this is one complete sentence. In 2014, the US Supreme Court ruled bans on same-sex marriage unconstitutional. That's a complete sentence. So this sentence could stand by itself and make sense. This decision for states to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples who apply. Same deal, right? This could also stand by itself and make sense. So we have a comma splice here. So we know it's not this one, no errors. Okay. So now we have to choose one of these four. And again, by process of elimination, we know it's not this one. All right. And then if we read this one, right, U.S. Supreme Court rules same-sex marriage unconstitutional. While this decision forced states to issue marriage licenses, that's not right because that'll give us a fragment. But let's put it, let's use this answer. Okay. If you get one wrong, check out the lesson. Okay, this is right from our textbook, right? So let's try it again. You know it's not this one because we have this transition word here, and this would need to be a semicolon, okay? And we know it's not this one because this would give us a run-on because this doesn't have any punctuation. So now, right, we can use the semicolon, okay? All right, now, for you all, and I think I said this before, but for you all, for these exercises, you have to answer at least 10 questions for your score to get recorded. All right, you can keep going, right? You can keep going like way past 10. Like I've seen people do like 50, 60, 100, but you only need to answer 10 of these to register a score. Once you've answered 10, you can just exit or you can keep going if you feel you need to practice. All right. And then when we go from draft number 2 to draft number 3, we'll talk more about these polishing issues. All right. And then I will, when I update D2L with this recording, I'll make sure I put a note about what's new in Inquisitive. And we're only on the first slide. Okay. I'll start moving a little bit faster. All right. Yeah. Okay. Plus I got some salmon thawing out on the counter there. I don't want to let it sit out too long before I put it in the oven. All right. Now, okay, this is what you're checking for. You're checking for organization. Okay, I mean to go back. Okay, checking for organization. Intro, hook, and thesis. Even though we don't really need a thesis just yet because we're working on a narrative, and sometimes the thesis statement is implied. But just make sure you're starting off, you know, in an interesting way. Interesting is subjective, I know, but one thing that I do want us to avoid for our next draft, try to avoid announcements or like statements of intent. Meaning like, don't address your reader like, you know, in this essay, you'll read about X, Y, and Z, or this essay will be about, you know, the things I went through in my life. All right, you don't even need to do that. All right, instead of announcing your intent, just do whatever you said you were going to do. Right. So if your paper is about, you know, the time that, you know, you struggled to make the 9th grade basketball team or whatever, just discuss that. You don't even need to tell your reader like I'm about to discuss, you know, X, Y, and Z. All right. And then in the body of your essay, really just make sure, and most of us are doing this, or most of us did this on our first draft, but if you didn't, you know, make sure you do it on your next draft. And what I'm saying is make sure your work is broken down into paragraphs. Like don't have giant supersized paragraphs, because it's kind of like being in a conversation with someone, but they aren't really letting you, they aren't really giving you time to digest, what you're telling you, right? So break it down. When you're switching to a new idea, start a new paragraph, or a new aspect of your narrative, start a new paragraph. Or you could be talking about the same thing, but you just want to give your reader, that moment to pause, right? Start a new paragraph. Okay, nothing wrong with that. Okay. We're just going to skip thesis statement because we're going to come back to that for our comment essay. All right, developing content. Are there enough examples, details, evidence? That's going to come later, but for now, we just need details and examples. And then, is there material that needs to be cut? All right. Some of you may see like strike throughs on your essay. And when I say strike through, I mean, you'll just see something like this. Okay. All right. And that means that's me asking you, like, do you really need this? Okay. Do you really need this? Okay. And you could be like, yeah, no, what I need. All right. And then, that's another discussion we'll have. Okay. Clarity, we talked about that. Okay. We'll move forward. You guys out of the way. All right. Now, this is specific to us. This is specific to us because the essay you're working on now is a narrative. If we were to put it in a genre, it's a narrative. Okay, meaning you're telling a story or you're communicating your experiences or an experience. Okay, so you're asking yourself these questions. All right, this is again what I mean by taking ownership, of this revision process. Does your narrative make a clear point? Right, and your point or your purpose is to show your reader this experience that you went through and what you learned from that experience. Okay, so if anything, right, is that clear, by the time your reader gets to the end of your essay? Is your point clear? And if you want, right, you can have someone else read it. Oh, okay. Oh, speaking of having someone else read it, if you want, you can upload a draft to NetTutor. Okay. And how I got to NetTutor, I went to D2L, but I'm not in our class right now. I'm just on D2L's homepage. Like, this is the page you go to right after you sign in. And you just click NetTutor, or excuse me, click Open NetTutor. It'll take you here. You might have to sign in again, and you just sign in using your, like, the same way you log into your student account. But you can come down here to Writing and Paper Center. And then you can either, have a session with the tutor. You can upload a paper, all right, and they'll give you feedback. For if you're gonna use NetTutor though, just don't wait until like the day of, because I think they need at least like a 24-hour turnaround time. So like, if you want to upload your first draft to NetTutor, you can, since it's already done, right? So you can do that, as soon as you can. I think they would prefer that you upload your material in Word, or possibly, let me see if it lists like what formats. Oh, you gotta type something for real. Okay. Oh, there. Yeah, so I think it'll only let you do like a PDF or Word. But if you're gonna use NetTutor, just triple check that. Also, if you want like an OCC tutor, you can just click on the ASC, the Academic Support Center, and then find the schedule. Where's the schedule? Tutoring, find the schedule, and then bam, right? Or wherever your home campus is. Check out that schedule, right? I know a couple of tutors in Southfield, and I think I know a couple in Royal Oak, but that's about it. Right. But wherever you take your wherever, when we are face to face, like wherever you would consider your home campus, just check that one out. Right. Now, does your essay effectively recreate your experience for your readers, or are there places where I can be more descriptive or add more detail? Okay. Is there distracting material that needs to be cut? Uh-oh, meaning did you go off topic? Right? Did you go off topic? Okay. Did you change directions on your reader too fast? Right. Like, are you talking about one thing in your paragraph and then like very abruptly? Right. Like, are you talking about, not making the basketball team or whatever in one paragraph, and then in that same paragraph, you talked about how, you dropped out of, or you didn't do so well in geometry or whatever. All right. So try not to go off topic in your paragraphs, okay? Or maybe you have paragraphs themselves that are off topic, that don't fit the grand scheme of your paper. Okay? Have I consistently written with my audience in mind? Okay. Couple of things about audience awareness. One, try not to address your audience directly, meaning like having a conversation, meaning saying things like, well, you would never guess what happened next. You would never think, that you would never think that something like this could happen. Okay. That's why on a few papers I put like, start practicing avoiding second person point of view, which is you, your, and you are, because you don't know what your reader was thinking. Right? When you say you would never think, you don't know that. Okay. Or, if you're talking about that, that time in math class, and you say, you had to have, all of your assignments in at the end of the week. Okay. Your reader's like, I wasn't in that class. So that's what, when you say you in your writing, it's like you're establishing a relationship with your reader that you don't have. Okay. Or you're making assumptions about your readers. All right. So that also, have I written with my audience in mind? Am I using words they understand? Right? Like if I'm a nurse, or something like that, I don't want to use, I don't want to fill my paper with nursing terminology, because the average layperson is not going to understand that. Okay. So if you're using words that are like really specific to a certain field, you may want to just give your readers some background, if necessary. Okay. Are my paragraphs connected to my purpose in logical order? Really, a logical order for this assignment is chronological order. Okay. Have I included adequate supporting details? And then this last question, because it's your essay. Am I content with my essay? Okay. Or at least content with it as it stands right now, knowing that I'm going to revise it more. Okay. So think about that. Right. Just gonna skip around now, start moving a little bit faster. All right. Now. Okay. Oh yeah, okay. We'll look at two more things and then we'll move on. Yeah, we'll look at two more things. All right. We haven't been talking about paragraphing much, because this is our first, actual writing assignment. And as we write more, we'll talk more about paragraphs. But I didn't put the word coherence on. I don't think I used it on any papers in this go round. But paragraph coherence, it just means like how each sentence in a paragraph should flow together, right? Like there should be a clear connection between each sentence. Okay. So if we look at this first paragraph under the original category, after my sophomore year of college, I had to drop out for a second time. I did not have the money to pay off my balance. My school would not let me back in until I paid $3,600. I went home. I got a job. I came back to school with a new appreciation for my education. Okay. There's nothing wrong with those sentences. Don't have any run-ons or fragments there. Okay. So from a technical standpoint, this paragraph doesn't have, this paragraph doesn't have any sentence level errors. All right. But we can make it flow a bit smoother by either adding things to fill in some informational gaps. So sometimes on your papers, I may have put a comment, what do you mean here? Okay, or be specific here. All right, so that's one way to enhance the coherence of your paper, just filling in like informational gaps or answering questions that your reader may have. Another way to achieve coherence is using transitions and transitional phrases. All right, and transitions and transitional phrases are words that help us do just that. They help us transition from one point to another, or one sentence to another, or even one paragraph to another. All right, so if we look at the revised version of this paragraph, after my sophomore year in college, I had to drop out for a second time because I did not have the money to pay off my $3,600 balance, right? So now we're even though the original version was correct from a technical standpoint, now we don't have as many like short and choppy sentences. As a result, that's our first transition. As a result, I had to return home for a semester. Another transitional phrase. And for you all, the transitional phrases you're going to be using are phrases that mark the passage of time, right? You're going to be using other transitions, but for the most part in narrative, when you're talking about like a sequence of events, transitions marking the passage of time work really well. While I was at home, okay, I got a job at Little Caesars during the week, and on the weekends, I worked as a cart attendant at Rouge Park Golf Course. After 3 months of working and saving, another transition marking the passage of time. So for you, right? Once I graduated, okay? Once I finally passed, summer school, right? Once I moved out, after I moved out of my parents' house, okay? When I returned from my grandparents, when I returned from seeing my grandparents over the summer, and then you would go on with whatever you were gonna say. All right. So these transitional phrases kind of help you move smoothly, through your narrative or through your experiences. After 3 months of working and saving. Okay. Once I had recovered from the breakup. All right. Things like that. Little things that'll give your readers more insight, and it'll help your paragraphs flow, again, more smoothly. All right. I had earned enough to pay off my balance to begin my junior year. This time around, I appreciated my education much more because I was paying with my own money. Okay. So transitions, filling in informational gaps. Sometimes it's just completing your thought, right? Sometimes it's using repetition. And when I say repetition, I mean, all right. So repetition is this, right? Last week I was diagnosed with strep throat. Okay, hopefully I'm not bringing that on myself by using that as an example. All right. This will keep me out of class for another week. Instead of just going this right here, this illness. So a lot of times, or on some of the papers, you'll see this comment. All right. So when I have this comment, like what's this or what's that or what's whatever, it just means like, you know, be specific about what you mean, or it's kind of nudging you to use repetition, you know, to achieve coherence. Last week I was diagnosed with strep throat. This illness will keep me out of class for another week. So instead of just going, this will keep me out, this illness, you know, this sickness, this affliction, this whatever. Okay. Here's just some, yeah, here we go. More coherent strategies. Now, here's the last thing we'll discuss. All right. We don't even have to we won't cover the book material. As I said, I didn't want to keep you past it. So we can go back over the book material when we go from draft number 2 to draft number 3. Because again, like I was saying, we're still revising our content. All right. So we know coherence, it just means your paragraphs flow smoothly. One sentence flowing smoothly into the next. We're using transitions. We're using repetition when necessary. We're filling in gaps of information. Okay. But we also want to make sure our paragraphs are adequately developed. Development answers this question. Have I given my reader enough detail? Have I given my reader enough detail? And on some of the papers, I put practice using more specific details or more concrete details. Like show your reader what you went through. So if we look at this example, and I saw, you know, quite a few paragraphs that looked like this, which is perfectly fine, you know, for a first draft. All right. My first year of college did not go too well. I had a lot going on and that affected my grades. I was reprimanded and I soon realized that I needed to get my act together. Okay. That says a lot, but it doesn't say a lot, if that makes any sense. All right. Because it tells your reader about this first year, but it doesn't show them what you meant. Okay. And again, you show them with concrete details. Concrete details are details that your reader can visualize. My first semester at Michigan State did not go too well. Oh, okay. All right. I was working full-time, going to school full-time, and I had a pretty active social life. So you see, instead of saying I had a lot going on, what did you have going on? Okay. Oh, you were working full-time, going to school full-time, and you had an active social life. Well, what happened as a result of that? Trying to balance my classes, my job, and keeping up with my friends resulted in me earning a 1.5 GPA at the end of the semester. Oh, that's what you meant when you said it affected your grades. Consequently, there's a transition. I was placed on academic probation, which meant I would have to increase my GPA in order to stay at state. Oh, that's what you meant when you said you got reprimanded. This reprimand will be my wake-up call that I needed to reorganize my priorities, right? So the revised version of this is a lot more specific. It has more detail. It has details that your reader can visualize. Okay. So if on your paper, put a comment, right? Be more specific here. This is kind of what I was getting at. Okay. Give your reader more specific detail. Give them some insight into your life and experiences. Okay. Give them something specific that they can see or that they can picture in their own minds when they're reading your papers. All right. Now, I do have some like sentence material in this. There's a few more slides here, but we're going to save that from when we go to draft number 2 to draft number 3. But if you want to look at this stuff, you know, more power to you. All right, now. Okay, if we look in the week 5 module, right, we'll see a few things. All right, this is what we were just looking at. These slides, right? It's the very first thing. This is just a website kind of reinforcing what we were just going over, or more, not a website, but more you know, more tidbits. Same thing with this one. All right. All right. More strategies for revision. All right. Same thing. More. All right. We don't need this yet because I haven't started to go like to highlight your papers and whatnot yet. But I do have a feedback key. Like when I start like really highlighting and making more comments on your paper. So if you want to take a chance or take a look at that, you can. Okay. Yeah. One of the things about this feedback key is this, right? If you're struggling with run-ons and Comma Splice, you have your textbook, of course, but I use this website. It's just called Quick and Dirty Tips or Grammar Girl. But if you hold down Control and click on that, it'll just give you a quick rundown. All right. Bam. Gives you some fixes for run-ons as well. And then there's also one about Comma Splice. All right. So that's from the feedback key, and there's these 2 links right here. All right. And then the rest we'll go over. Oh wait, no. There's some stuff about second person point of view here, about points of view. Okay, right here. If you want to get some tips on how to avoid second person point of view. All right. I also have other items I can upload as well. I thought I did, but I don't have I have to copy that module from another class. All right. Now, we do have another set of reading questions, of course. We can't let you out of here without that. Okay. Reading questions number 3 from pages 75 to 100. All right. And then the reading for Monday. Okay. I think I already said it the last time we met. The reading for Monday is read the page 136. Again, like I said, I am going to once I upload the recording of this class, I will just reinforce all this stuff that I just said. All right. So really just to recap for today, we're revising. So you're still working on like organization and content. And I do, you know, want you to look beyond, of course, like I was saying before, look at, you know, the things that I have commented on, look at the suggestions that I've made, but also I want you to take ownership of this process. Go back over your own paper, you know, meet with a tutor if you feel that's necessary. All right, upload your paper to NetTutor if you want to. All right, so you can get some additional feedback. All right. Don't make the mistake of thinking that revision is just fixing. Meaning, don't just go over your paper and look at everything with a comment next to it and say, okay, Norwood told me to change that. He told me to change this, you know, and so on and so forth. Revision is much more than fixing. Like when you look at the word revision, like revision, it means to see again, right? See your paper again. So you're going back over your paper, all right, instead of just fixing. Okay. And then you got a week. You got a week to get this done. All right, plenty of time. And we're moving at a good pace to, like I said before, just to get this out of the way before you guys go on that the midwinter break, I think is. All right. Any questions for me before we get out of here?
Yes, when is the questions due for Born in the Crime?
Sunday evening.
Sunday.
Yep. Also, if you have not submitted your first draft yet, I need you to get that in ASAP, because you don't want to get too far behind, because the work is still coming. The work is still
Yeah. I had a question about my essay, but I was gonna wait till everybody else left.
Okay, that's cool. All right, and I'll stop recording while we're at it. All right.